Blessed be everyone. Welcome to the live stream. Welcome back to Mystery Witch School. Tonight isn't going to be about spells or complex spells. It's not going to be about ritual or deity work. It's actually going to be about you the witch. I've been reading people's comments. I get emails from people. What I'm asked all of the time is, am I doing it right? Should I do it this way? What does it mean if this happens? What that happens? Am I a real witch? What makes me what would make me feel like I'm a real witch? Because a lot of people feel like frauds. A lot of people have imposter syndrome. So tonight we're going to tackle the imposter syndrome head on. I have about 5 common questions that people ask me, and I would also like you to submit your questions or your experiences of feeling like a fraud or your experiences of feeling like an imposter. And what area is that in? What are your questions about you being a bona fide, authentic witch? Any insecurities that you have about it? Any little voices in your head that are telling you you're not a real witch because of yada, yada, yada? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat, and we'll talk about those at the end of the live. Welcome everybody to the live stream. I see there's some people who got in early. That's absolutely awesome. And welcome everybody. So we're going to just dive straight into it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sandra. I've been on the witchcraft path now for over 35 years. I'm the author of Crafting Your Wiccan Path, and I will help you awaken your inner witch so that you can walk your path with clarity and confidence and a sense of connection. So if you do have any of these questions regarding your authenticity, let me know and I can help you put those questions to rest. Merry meet everyone. Frozen Central Illinois. Are you freezing? Have you got a cold snap happening there? We've got our usual heat going on here where I live. It's that time of the year when we get to well into the 30s in Celsius, sometimes up to 37 even this very time of the year. It seems to always happen at the ending of January. Okay, so let's start talking about the very first block. One of the things that a lot of people are looking for in order to feel like a real witch, and that is validation. So a question that I had recently was, I don't have a coven. I don't know anyone in a coven. I haven't been initiated into, Wicca or witchcraft. I can't afford the fancy things like, the fancy athames and tools and crystals and that. Am I still a witch? I don't know if anybody out there shares a similar question. If you do, let me know. And I just saw that comment there. I'm CEO of Imposters Are Us. Love that, James. That's funny. Yes, but the answer to the question of, just because you don't have a coven doesn't mean that you're not a witch. Witches haven't always had covens. There are solitary witches. There have been cunning folk in the past, village witches in the past, people who were witchy and healers who were solitaries. They lived by themselves. Often they lived away from the village and they were more solitary. Whereas some traditional families got together familiarly and celebrated things. But covens in and of themselves are probably more of a recent phenomenon, in that a coven is a group of people who aren't related. They are just groups of people from here, there, and everywhere who come together to share in practicing witchcraft as a group. So you don't need to be in a coven to be a bona fide witch. A lot of traditional witches aren't part of covens. They're just simply not part of a coven, and that's very, very common. So yes, you don't need a coven. You don't need to be initiated by anybody either. That again has come really from more the Western mystical traditions of being initiated into orders and high magic sort of orders or mystical orders like the Golden Dawn, for example. And the initiation is often a very, very formal ceremony. And within Wicca, There's formal ceremonies too of initiation because Wicca follows that more ceremonial line. It sort of comes out of the Golden Dawn Masonic Rosicrucian kind of background. The people that founded it come from those backgrounds. So hence Wicca has a very formal initiation. But traditional witchcraft, not necessarily so. If you're just learning from your grandmother or your mother or grandfather, you're basically just learning from an elder who teaches you all of the ins and outs of things, and you don't go through an initiation ceremonially. You may go through initiations in regards to your life experiences, because life experiences are initiations too, but not necessarily anything formal. So you don't have to be initiated to be a witch either. And as for not being able to afford the tools or the fancy expensive versions of the tools and crystals, again, you don't need any tools as a witch either. Most witches, traditional witches, used what was around the place. They used natural things like plants, for example, that were growing in the ground. They would use their cooking pots and that for their magic, as kitchen witches do today. They weren't necessarily going out and buying these beautiful, athames that have crystals in them and engraved with all these magical designs. I mean, they're wonderful to have in this day and age, but they're not necessary to have. So if you don't have any of that stuff, it still doesn't mean you're not a witch or that you can't be a witch. The modern sentiment is very much on material objects and also on having to be a part of a group. That's just where we are in our modern sentiment at the moment. And a lot of these uh, images you see of witches in modern day are just coming out of that modern sentiment. They're not necessarily traditional or really even have anything to do with traditional witchcraft. So that is one of the first blocks that people have to being a witch. Now, I know some of you are totally new to the craft, and this is very, very confusing. You've got a lot of information out there that you don't necessarily understand. Is it true? Is it not? Where do I start? What do I do? How, all these things I need to learn. How do I learn them? What order do I learn them in? I've fixed all that with a free masterclass called How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice. It outlines, for one thing, why you might be struggling on the path and how to fix it, and also gives you a plan of action so that you can start somewhere right at the very beginning, and then you can pace yourself along the way so that you know, okay, I'm going to start with energy work, I'm going to do that, and then you can move on to learning about the tools, learning about circle work, learning about magic, sabbats, and all of that stuff as you go. So that is really a plan of action called How to Start Your Witchcraft Practice. It'll show you what you need to implement and how you can pace yourself in the implementation over a 12-month period. There's a link in the description field below the video. You can also find it on my website, mysterywitchschool.com, as well. Okay, I will come to the comments at the end so that we can get through this nice and easy. So block number 2. The question here is about labels. Now, I recently did a video about a month ago on which type of witch are you, where I talked about hedge witches, green witches, kitchen witches, traditional witch, Wiccan witch, all of these different types of labels that you can put on the word witch. But the truth is, back in the day, and I'm talking about, 100 years ago, 500 years ago, even before that, witches weren't necessarily a particular type of witch. A witch was a witch. And they did pretty much were jacks of all trade or jills of all trades. They did pretty much everything a witch would do. And they were a bit of all of these different labels that we have today. So they were a green witch to a large extent. They were a hedge witch to some extent. They were a kitchen witch often, and often they were just simply traditional witches practicing the craft in their own space or maybe within a family group. But they weren't necessarily labeling themselves as particular types of witches like we have today, and we have a huge amount of types of witches. So often a stumbling block for a lot of people feeling like they're not a real witch is that they don't know where to put themselves in the identity sentiment. So I need to identify as a certain type of witch, but which type of witch am I? Am I a green witch? Am I a hedge witch? Am I a kitchen witch? And you become overwhelmed by having to put yourself into a pigeonhole when you don't need to put yourself into a pigeonhole at all. You can do a little bit of each, and that can be part of who you are and part of your practice. In our current environment and our current culture, in Western culture anyway, we're obsessed with labels. We're obsessed with identifying with external things. We're not we're very outwardly focused, and we're very keen to put ourselves in a box or a pigeonhole, when nature isn't like that. Nature doesn't pigeonhole things. And from a magical perspective, you don't really want to be going around and identifying with so many different things. You want to come back to identifying with who you truly are, which is actually an internal experience of who you are, not an external uh, experience or a relationship with anything external. That's not what you are. You are who you are within yourself, and you don't need to have external means to express that necessarily. So don't get hung up on what type of witch you would be. And if you like the idea of being a hedge witch, for example, who basically practice witchcraft the same as everybody else, but there's a particular focus on working with spirits, with hedge witchery, and that's something you really resonate with because working with spirits is something you just seem to naturally really gravitate towards, then that's great. But just because you may then cook uh, as well, cook magical meals as well, like a kitchen witch, doesn't mean that you're no longer a hedge witch. It just simply means that you're a witch. So these labels are really descriptive. They're descriptive of the different types of interests that various witches have. So some witches are more into working with herbs and working in the garden and working in that more green witch fashion. Others are more into really exploring the spirit work and the mediumship. Others are very interested in exploring working with cooking and using magic within their cooking. Others are more ceremonial oriented. There's so many different things you can have as your passion or your forte that you don't need to worry about labeling yourself. You may have more of a proclivity to being a wonderful divination type of witch. So you're great at doing tarot, great with oracle cards, great with the I Ching or any form of divination. And maybe you're not so into working with herbs and crystals. Does that mean you're not a witch? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that you're not a witch. It just means that you have a particular area of interest that you would prefer to go down and explore, and not so much in other areas. Whilst traditionally witches were kind of jacks and jills of all trades, it doesn't mean that you have to be that way now. So you can still be eclectic without not you can still be eclectic, essentially. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself. You can just simply be a witch and leave it at that. Okay, because my identity, I guess if you want to use the word identity as a witch, has moved as well. I started out as really very Wiccan because that was where I came through. That was the coven experience that I had. But even within my coven, my high priest even moved away from connecting or identifying as Wiccan. He moved away and became more a traditional witch because he didn't like the route that Wicca was going down in regards to the New Age movement, and it becoming a little bit more sort of probably a little bit more new agey in sentiment, moving away from being more realistic when it comes to really understanding nature and knowing that nature is a polarity and being able to accept and work within that polarity of nature, which means the good and the bad, the ugly and the beautiful. And the stuff that's really, really shocking and horrible, and the really beautiful and lovely stuff. And just knowing that that's how nature is, the cruelty of nature, understanding nature is cruel. But nature can also be very, very beautiful and compassionate too. So it's understanding that everything is a polarity. And often when we get too caught up in the spiritual side of things, we can get a little bit into the fluffy bunny side of it, and it's all unicorns and butterflies. And we start to lock the shadow side of nature up, even, and the shadow side of all life on this planet. And we try to restrict life on this planet and what it can and can't do because we're misunderstanding nature and how nature works. So that's block number 2. Block number 3, the reality block. So this is where you're in the broom closet, okay? And you have to go out and face the world, the reality of the world, going to work, running a business, having family, and maybe your family is religious, involved in religious traditions that just don't support the craft at all or paganism at all. And that's a struggle for you. You may even be in a culture that doesn't support paganism or witchcraft either. You could be in an environment, just your living environment in general, in the community that you live within, that is not supportive of the craft either, which means you can't practice outwardly. You have to practice in secret. And some people feel that because they've got to do that, they don't really feel like they're really living up to their true witchness, that they can't really express themselves as a witch in an outward fashion, and that somehow that invalidates them being a witch, which isn't true. You can be a silent witch. You can be a witch within yourself because that really is what makes you a witch. It's an inside thing, it's not an outside thing. It's not about you having to, look a certain way or talk a certain way or announce to the world that you're a witch. It's what you do within your own self, how you feel within yourself, and what you do when you are doing rituals and magic by yourself. If you're having to be discreet, you're still practicing the craft, which still makes you a witch. So just because you're not able to walk around fully announcing that you're a witch doesn't mean that you're not a witch and that somehow you're an imposter or you're invalid. Block number 4 is if your spells aren't working or if you have periods of time where you've tried spell and it's just not working. And often that can make you doubt whether you're a witch or not because, witches are supposed to be really good spellcasters all the time and they're perfect at doing tarot all the time and they can speak to the spirits all the time. They're on their game all the time, and that's just not it's just simply not being human. Being successful all the time with all of these things. We're human beings, and we have off days, and we have things that are going on in our personal lives. We have our programming and beliefs about ourselves and the world, which can stifle our magic and stop us from truly bringing things into our life that we truly want. We can have great success at some aspects of witchcraft and not so good as experiences of the craft. So you might be great at magic, but maybe you're not very good at reading the tarot. It's always been a struggle for you. Or the other way around, maybe you're great at being able to do divination and have psychic experiences, but maybe not so good in some areas of spellcasting. It doesn't mean you're not a witch. It just means that there's some areas you need to work more on than other areas if you want to become better at that area. When it comes to spellcasting, it's really about clarity about what you want and being able to align your subconscious mind with your conscious desire so that they're on the same path and you're not subconsciously sabotaging your magic. And that's really the key to spell work. It's not whether you can do good spells and make up great spells. It's got nothing to do with how you did the spell, if you did it in particular order. It's to do with your clarity in understanding what you want, why you want it, and that you can have it. That's really what spell casting is about. So just because your spells may not be working, it's not that you're not a witch, it's just there's something else blocking you from having success in that area. So there's other things you might want to look at, doing a little bit of shadow work, a little bit of inner work to just get to know yourself more and how you may be holding yourself back. We have a lot more blockages these days than perhaps people did in the past. People lived lives that were much simpler than the lives we live today. And people who are witches often were trained very young by other witches. They were in family groups where all of this stuff was something that was accepted as being true and real, and no one doubted it. But in our modern era, we come from upbringings where witchcraft is probably scoffed at, laughed at, or just simply vilified. And so we don't have that protective factor that maybe traditional witches of the past may have had through being with other people of like mind and growing up with those people. So we have a lot of baggage that we have to uh, get rid of and change in our modern era that we may not have had back in the day. So block number 5 is believing that you're not very good at something. Maybe you're great at spell casting. You have really good results, and you can even cast spells for others, and you're on top of that all the time. But when it comes to doing tarot or divination, you just can't get it together. You look at the cards, and it's like a blank. You don't know where to go with the cards. Or maybe you feel that, you should be good at mediumship, you should be able to speak to the spirits, you should be able to see the spirits, you should be able to see the fairies, communicate with the fae. But maybe you're particularly good at divination, but you're not so good at being able to see and communicate with spirits. So therefore, you're not a witch, because to be a witch, you've got to do all these things, right? That's not true either. You may be really lousy at communicating with spirits at the beginning, but really good at doing magic. It just means that communicating with spirits isn't one of your strong points at this stage, and it may be something that you might want to learn to do and get better at as you go along. It's a learning curve, the craft, and you need to be patient with yourself to know that you don't have to be good at everything at once. There's going to be things you're not that great at, just as you are in the rest of your life, good at some things, not so good at other things. Forget about labels. You don't have to label yourself at all. And you don't need validation from a coven or an initiation or anything like that. And if you are struggling with your spell work, it's really just a matter of, where am I not aligned with my desire? Am I not clear in what I want? Am I just putting it out there because I think that's what I should want? What is my subconscious telling me about my desire? Is it telling me it's not possible? Is it telling me, hey, that's actually not what you really want? And start exploring yourself and your inner world when it comes to trying to fix the mistakes in your spell casting, for example. Okay. So let's go to the comments and see what you've got here. I've been slacking. Okay, Chrisusa, you've been slacking. Glad I got to make a live. Awesome. And yes, the CEO of Imposters Are Us. Okay, -30 where you are, Moira. Jeez, that's cold. And that's Celsius too. Oh, oh. It's actually +30 here. Celsius. So it's, yeah, quite the opposite. Okay, James says, I'm someone who has lots of teachers and know lots of witches and have no coven. And that means I'm not tied to any group. That's right. It means you're just not tied to a group, but you're still a witch. I have many things and will make my own at the May once I find the number of localish magic blacksmith. Okay, cool. Yes. I don't put myself in a box. I have enough boxes that I try not to fit in. Yes, there's a lot of boxes out there. How does astrology work with witchcraft? Well, astrology works with witchcraft in a number of ways. You can use astrology to get to know yourself and understand more about you and how you operate and what's particular to you. You may find that in your astrology, there's certain planets that are in certain houses, aligned in certain ways, that give you certain personality traits or tendencies towards things. So, for example, you may be somebody who is very independent, and that might be because you have a planet in one of the fire signs that is pushing you towards being more independent in your life. And that's actually something that you can pursue and utilize in your life to bring you joy and happiness in your life. So it can be like a roadmap to show you more about you as a person and the sorts of things that you gravitate towards and what would bring you more joy and more happiness in your life by simply following those aspects of yourself instead of trying to fit a mold that a culture or a family are trying to put you in. Astrology can also be used in magic so that you can use the energy of the planets and the deities associated with the planets to help you in your spell casting. The planets also govern the hours as well. So if you're doing magic, you might want to work with the energy of Saturn, which is a really strong energy that sort of doesn't move. So maybe you're wanting to solidify something or have something very, very stable. And so you work with the energy of Saturn in the hour of Saturn. You might want to expand something. So you work in the hour of Jupiter or the day of Jupiter. You can also work with astrology with the moon as well. The moon goes through all of the different astrological signs every month. It spends about 2.5 days in each sign. And so you can find out when is the moon going to be in Jupiter for working a particular magic in relation to expansion as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can work with astrology. The crooked path. Yes, it has been called the crooked path. It is hard living in a conservative area having to be so secretive, Steve. Yeah, absolutely. Needed to hear that. Thank you. I'm good. Glad. J.S. Smith. And yep, hello, Rodcat. Awesome. It's good to see everybody here today. So let me know any questions that you have about or what's troubling you in relation to you feeling like you're not a real witch or you feel like an imposter. What is it about your your practice or the way you do things that makes you feel like an imposter? Is it that you feel you're lacking something, a lacking ability, or is it something else that has you feeling like an imposter? Because seriously, if you're into connecting with nature, understanding there's more to the world than what we can see and what we've been told, to feel that there's a you have a real affinity to nature and understanding nature and working with nature, not having any romantic notions about what nature is or what nature should be, but being very realistic about nature, and still at the same time feeling that connection and understanding the cycles of life, understanding the cycles of the year, and how nature is a polarity, as well as wanting to create your own life and have the things you want to have, do the things you want to do, then, and you're practicing that, you're going out and connecting with nature. You're praying under the moon. You're celebrating the Sabbats in some way or the cycles of the year, even if that is just, simply just going out on the morning of a Sabbat and just looking around you and connecting with nature and seeing how nature's behaving at that particular time of the year and giving thanks for what you have. All of those things, and then practicing magic and learning about magic and finding ways that you can make magic work for you. All of those things are things that witches do, which means that in that moment you are being a witch. You don't have to have a coven. You don't have to be initiated into a magical group. You don't have to be good at everything that witches do to be a witch. You simply do what witches do, and hence that makes you a witch, because a witch is something you can choose to be. And It's it's really a practice. It's something that you do. It can feel like it's something that you are as well, because the witch is associated with magic, with nature. So you can feel that that is who and what you are, because you can feel that you're a being that is connected to nature, that you're a being that is connected to magic, that you're a being that is having these experiences. So you're experiencing your witchness, you're experiencing that witch within yourself that has the ability to be empowered, that has the ability to connect and understand nature, that has the ability to stand back and look at the world without getting caught up in it, because you know that everything happens in cycles, and there's ebb and there's flow to life. And you also know yourself deep down inside who you are. And that's what makes you a witch. When you discover the path for the first time and you really get curious about it, and it's like coming home to something, coming home to who and what you are. So if you felt that feeling of coming home when you've explored the craft, then that's what you're coming home to. You're coming home to your inner witch. And whether you're good at tarot cards or not, or whether you're good at spell casting or not, isn't the point. The point is your connection to what witches do and what witches are. So I hope that makes sense to you. And it's the very thing that I teach uh, in the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy, which is my 12-month course on witchcraft. I teach that. I teach you how to access your inner witch through practicing witchcraft, practicing energy work, working in circles, in circle work, creating sacred space, working with various different deities, working with the elements, working magic, and getting to know yourself and who you are and how you tick. That's all a part of being a witch. And in the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy, that's what you do over that 12-month period. You go through all of those different processes and all of those different experiences working with the tools of the witch and the ways that witches work. And you do that month by month by month, and you add to it every month, so that you're not learning everything at once. You don't have to practice everything at once. You can go at a slow pace and get to feel what it's like to practice magic, to feel what it's like to do energy work, to turn up for yourself every day, to feel what it's like to experience the craft and the witch coming out within you on a daily basis. And it's a personal experience. Being a witch is a becoming. It's bringing that witch out from within you out into the open. Whether you have to hide or not, you're still bringing that out within you and opening that up to you. So that's why I've created the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. And if you are interested in learning witchcraft with me and learning in a way that brings your inner witch out and helps you practice the craft so that you can feel connected to yourself, your witch self, to nature, to the deities, take back your power so that you can be who you truly are again, then I do invite you to the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy. There's a link in the description field below the video for how you can join that. And it's also on my website, mysterywitchschool.com, as well, under my courses tab, but it's also on the homepage too. You can easily find it. So let's go back to the comments again, see what we've got. Okay, Rodcat says, to be a real witch, do I have to have a mark on my body? No, you don't need a mark on your body. That's the whole, back to the witch hunt days, back in the Middle Ages, nonsense. That came out of, I think that probably did come from those two monks that wrote that dreadful book that started the whole thing. No, you don't need marks. There's no such thing as having a mark as a witch. Witches are just normal people. We're just normal people. It's very boring. There's nothing exciting about it. We're just normal, average, everyday people. Um, Matthew says, I know a lot of witches, but I practice as a solitary witch and I enjoy broadcasts like yours. I practice the Christian beliefs and it pulls me in several ways. And you can certainly be a Christian witch. There's a lot of witches out there that are actually Christian witches. So it's not necessarily mutually exclusive at all. And if you look at when Christians, follow Jesus, and if you look at the things that Jesus did, he did a lot of magic. He was healing, he was doing a lot of magic. And a lot of his philosophy, when you look at the interpretation more from a mystical perspective rather than a literal perspective, like a lot of people do, um, he was talking about magic all the time. And he was also talking about know thyself all the time. Know who you are. God is within you. All of those things that are just equal to really what we practice in the craft. Really, yes, we do work with deities, but we also know that we are divine within ourselves. That we are gods and goddesses too, and acknowledging that. So there really isn't a lot of difference there. It's more what came after with Christianity and with the church and all of that. That is the problem. Can we use a diffuser instead of incense if we can't deal with the smoke? Absolutely, use a diffuser. Yes, I'm not great with incense smoke either. I don't use a censer when I'm working with incense. I always use a joss stick because I can't handle a lot of smoke. But if you want to use an infuser with oils instead, yeah, you can certainly do that. And use the water vapor as the carrier of the scent. The only problem is if you're going to be using incense as the element of air, which isn't actually a problem either, because even though it's water vapor that's creating the mist in a diffuser, it's still misting into the air. So that's where you can have probably still a little bit of the element of water there, but it's also the element of air because it's being mystified by the air and carrying the scent on the air, but you still have a little bit of water in there. Just as incense sticks have a little bit of fire element in them too. Okay. Yeah, the Malleus Maleficarum. Yes, that was the book. The book. But if you practice alone, is it convenient to follow a grimoire of magic? It can be convenient. Absolutely. Um, no reason why you can't follow a grimoire of magic if you're practicing alone. Hi, Teak. Oh, you need nothing to clear your area. Yes, you don't necessarily have to have something. Witches usually have cats. A lot of witches have cats. I know witches have dogs too. A lot of witches have different various pets. Some have snakes, some have rats, some have cats, some have dogs, guinea pigs, any type of typical pet people have. Some people have birds. They might have rescue birds. Some witches do rescue animals, so they've got all sorts of particular animals. Some have cats and dogs. I've had a dog too, although I'm more a cat person. I have had a dog. I like dogs. I just like them to be other people's dogs and not have the responsibility of them myself. But dogs are great fun. I just like to hand them back to their owner at the end of the day. But cats are a lot easier for me to live with. They're very independent. But you don't have to have a cat to be a witch at all. It's like if you work with Hecate, you don't have to have a dog to work with Hecate. You can have a cat. You can have a dog. You can have a guinea pig. You can have a goldfish and be a witch, okay? Or just be petless and have a be a witch. You don't need all that stuff. Okay, so just letting you know, we have a Sabbath coming up. What date is it? Next week, I believe it will be. When is the 31st? I think the 31st is a Saturday. So that means, yes, there's a Sabbath coming up Sunday, Monday. So it's Imulk for those of you in the north and Lunasa for people like me in the southern hemisphere. I have a video coming out Thursday morning Australian time, Wednesday afternoon US time on emulk particularly, and I've also left some tips there for how you can use the emulk rights for Lunasa, so how you can tweak them and use them for Lunasa if you're watching from the Southern Hemisphere. So, yeah, make sure that you see that one if you're just looking for really easy ways, like I'm talking really easy ways, to celebrate Imbolc or even Lunasa uh, for the Sabbath that's coming up next week. You don't need an owl to work with Hera. No, you don't. No, it's not easy to obtain an owl. Often they're usually protected unless you do rescue, that kind of thing. So, yes, thank you everybody for attending. I hope that did clarify things. If not, just pop some comments in the comment section on the replay. If there's anything you want me to answer into regards to your dilemma about being a real bona fide witch. And if you have any questions about the Mystery Witch School 101 Academy as well, you can also email me at sandra@mysterywitchschool.com, and I'll get back to you as well. So, yes, blessed be everyone, and have a lovely week. I won't be doing another live now till about a month. I'm going to change the lives now to once a month instead of doing them every week for the time being. So I will see you again in 4 weeks. So blessed be.